Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jared?
The sun's up, man. Nice and early. It's warm out. I am happy again.
Spring is coming, baby.
Dude, I love it, man. I love spring. I love summer. I like winter until Christmas, and then I'm ready for it to go away.
Yeah, it's game time.
How you doing?
I'm great. I really enjoyed our last guest. Had an awesome time with Dan.
Oh, man.
And I was telling my Toastmasters club, who's just a club of really, really great speakers, that we got to interview a hostage negotiator. People were like, whoa, that's really cool. So just getting feedback from them, I'm really excited to hear what the community has to say.
Oh, man. I can't wait to hear their feedback. But what was your main takeaway from Dan?
Just the power of listening, how powerful listening can be. And that's something that I've read before and kind of on the episode we've talked about, but it was just a great reminder of how powerful authentic listening can be, even in a hostage situation.
Yeah, it was amazing to me just watching how he listened to us.
Yeah.
Like he was literally practicing what he preached on the show. And what really took me back was you started like, hey, I kind of have a story here. And he literally said, tell me more. Mm-hmm. And I felt like him saying, tell me more, made me want to hear more too. And I was just thinking like, man, I don't use that enough.
Yeah.
Like, tell me more. Like, what more open of an invitation to say, hey, I'm ready to listen, share, than saying simply, tell me more. So I made a note of that, and I was like, wow, so I'm going to try including that more, like with my conversations with my kids and Andrea and just people I'm around, because sometimes, you kind of have to pull stories from people or get them to understand that you're willing to listen, because so many people aren't. And just that simple 3 words when he said, tell me more, I was like, wow, that is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great little tool to use.
He's high level, dude.
Yeah.
I told you he's way smarter than me.
Yeah, he had some big words in there.
Oh,
I didn't even, some of his Latin polyglot, his superhero polyglot.
The fact that he didn't even think twice about what his superhero would be means that he's definitely thought this over before.
And his food, too. It's like peanut butter.
Oh, man.
Immediately.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, I hope the community really gets something out of that one, and I'm excited for today's episode.
Me too. So we'll be bringing on Patrick Fitzgibbons here in a short while, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. So let's get after it, huh?
All right, let's do it. Let's bring him on.
All right,
ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Patrick Fitzgibbons. He is a retired police officer with 23 years of experience in various capacities. He's also the host of a top-rated podcast, CJEvolution. He's a coach, speaker through Triad Leadership and Development, and also has time to be a wonderful husband and father. Again, please help me welcome Mr. Patrick Fitzgibbons. How you doing this morning, Patrick?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Just an honor to be here on the On Purpose podcast. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, dude, I love seeing the roles reversed. I've been listening to this guy's voice for a while, and I was fortunate enough to be on one of his shows not too long ago. And I think we're going to have a battle, because I think my man Ali has a pretty good radio voice, too. So, I don't know. Patrick's up there.
Yeah. Quick funny story for our listeners. Jared was actually showing me Patrick's podcast without me knowing it was Patrick, and I was like, dude, who is that guy? He has a great radio voice. So he's like, dude, that's Patrick. We're interviewing him. Well, nice.
I never, Jared, you and I have talked about this a lot. I don't think I sound that different, but apparently I do.
You sound good. And then, for all the listeners out there, they both encouraged me to stay on radio, because apparently my face is better for radio than television. So these two have the voices, and I'm just the guy in the background.
There you go.
So, Patrick, before we jump into the heavy lifting of purpose, we got to warm you up a little bit, just like any good workout exercise. I'm not going to max you out right off the bat. So we need to know, our community has to know these things. If you can have one food for the rest of your life, what is Patrick eating?
Asparagus.
That was fast.
Yeah, that's good.
I love asparagus, and I don't know, it just popped into my mind. So my wife, my favorite morning food is asparagus and egg.
Not a bad start.
So I know it does some weird crap with your urine, but
stinky pee.
I love
it.
asparagus. Yeah. I love asparagus. So that wasn't a curveball, man.
All right, good. All right, well.
All right, next question, Patrick. If you could be any superhero, it can be fictional or, Patrick superhero version. Who would it be, and what would your one superpower be?
I like Wolverine.
Oh, nice.
Wolverine's a badass. Is it okay if I say
badass?
Oh, yeah.
Just because he has that healing ability, you can't really destroy him. His skeleton is adamantium or something like that. So I love that, and I love the retractable claws. I remember when I was a kid growing up, I used to read all the X-Men comics, and he was one of my favorites. So.
Yeah. Back before they were movies.
Before they were movies. We were like, oh, shit, we got to read stuff.
Yeah.
I always love Wolverine. So
love that.
Yeah.
You kind of got the little Wolverine vibe.
I don't know, man. I don't have I don't have a lot of hair.
Right.
But of course I'm not built like this guy over here.
Oh my goodness.
But he's Wolverine's great.
Yeah, you got the
hair.
chops coming in a little bit. I can see a
trying
little
to-
Wolverine.
Now I'm
Trying to grow it a little bit.
There we go. Good. All right, and Patrick, last warm-up question: what book are you currently reading?
I am reading. Let me see, Man Up by Bedros Kilian. And it's a great book. I've read it before. I'm reading it again. And it's basically about taking responsibility, manning up, and owning your life, taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life, because it really is up to you. And it's a great book. I'd recommend it for anybody. And I love reading. I'm glad you asked me that question, because I'm not just... I have one that I'm reading right now, but I sometimes kind of read one. I start one, then I go to another one. But right now I'm devoted to that book, Man Up.
Yeah, that's nice. Ali does the same thing. I'm a one book at a time guy. Otherwise, I get confused on what I read last. Why do you read a book twice? Because Ali, you do that a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I think that's a great question. Because I just want to make sure I'm absorbing it. Not that I don't get it or understand it the first time. But there's so many good pieces of information in a lot of books that I want to read it again, make sure I'm understanding it correctly and I'm getting it and it's really, really sinking in. I don't read all books twice, but the ones that I read the first time, and I'm like, wow. Really, I want to read it again because I like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah, no, that's huge.
Yeah,
storytelling creates feelings. Yeah. I think. The only books I can remember reading a couple times. I read Goggins twice, just because it was so intense the first time. I kind of slowed down, and then Jocko stuff.
Yeah, Jocko.
Just because there's so many nuggets, you can read like a little bit and think about it for a week. So good, y'all warmed up then. Man,
go ahead.
Asparagus, Wolverine, and Man Up.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm all warmed up. I feel like I'm on the promotional hot seat. I feel like I'm back. I'm being a cop now.
Oh, dude, I love this, man. Yeah, that's
awesome. Hit me.
We are so blessed to have you here, and so blessed to be able to share this with the community. It's amazing what's going on with the On Purpose community, and just the care people are showing for one another and the love. And part of that is sharing stories and realizing that everybody has a story to tell, and that your story, there's somebody in the world that's waiting to hear it because that's going to impact them. Yeah. And man, we just get excited when we have guests on it and get to share more than just our perspectives on things.
Yeah, and I'm blessed, to know you, Jared. I've known you for a while now, and we're doing some collaborations together with Triad that you mentioned at the beginning, and it's an honor to be a part of that. But yeah, man, it's amazing that we've known each other for not a long period of time, but I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, and you listen to my stuff, and it's amazing how people can come together and spread out that message of hope and living a purposeful life and inspiration. Because like you, I think a lot of people need it, and they're in that place where they don't have it.
Yep. And we're fortunate enough with today's technology that you don't just have to hope you find it. You can purposely go out and seek like-minded people and messages and join communities that are going to help uplift you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really exciting time. So Patrick, we like to start with the big question and really narrow things down and get a little bit more specific. So I'm sure with everything that you have going on and 23 years experience in the police force that you have lots of stories, but in a concise couple sentences, how would you describe your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is, I had a great career in law enforcement. You mentioned it. But my life's purpose now is to take what I've learned, and I'm constantly learning, by the way, take what I've learned and to continue to give back, again, to everybody, but mainly the first responder community, because it's been such a great career that I've had over the years. So, be a servant leader, continue to give back. I have so many great guests on my show that come on that I'm constantly learning from. And like we talked about earlier, it's a matter of taking that information and giving it back to the community. So that's my life's purpose, and live my life to the fullest extent and live a happy life and a purposeful life. But that's my mission.
I love that. I love how you have a priority, mainly the first responder community. And as soon as you said that, that made me think of your Wolverine answer, because I feel that the first responder community, a lot of things go unnoticed, a lot of wounds go unnoticed, sometimes mentally, sometimes spiritually, and you have to be able to heal. So that's amazing. What kind of things are you doing to give back?
Well, I have the podcast that you guys mentioned. Thanks for the plug. I started that about 3.5 years ago, and that has been an amazing ride. Nice. and that's one way I can give back. And for those of you who don't know about my show, it's not a show that I'm just telling war stories and things like that. I mean, that's important, it has a time and a place, but I wanted my show to be positive, uplifting, inspirational, taking, the guests that I have on and giving it back, and because we've all, like first responders, we all see the crap every day. We all see it. So I didn't want a show like that. And I have people that are nutritionists that come on, that talk about spirituality, that talk about leadership. Everybody that comes on my show, you can weave it back into the first responder community. So I wanted my show to be one of positivity, motivation, inspiration. So that's one way. I'm also involved in Triad, like we mentioned earlier, with Jared Hardy and the amazing Carrie Wooten. We came together just a few short months ago. And it's a matter of going into the first responder community, whether it's sheriff, police, whatever, and talking about things that aren't talked about that much. We scratched the surface on this, with Triad, or with, some workshops that I've been to, but we're really digging deeper with Triad, building resiliency, talking about that mindset, getting rid of the mental blocks, and we give you the tools how to do it. So that's another way we're giving back. I wrote a book, Evolve, which is a little micro book that I wanted to give back to the first responder community. Talks about my life a little bit and the experiences I had. So those are ways that I continue to give back, really to everybody, but mainly for the first responder criminal justice community.
One of the things I really enjoy about your show is that you've actually had people that had recently been out of prison on the show, which I think is important to help shape perspective again. It's easy to get cynical in the world. It's easy to see everybody through a certain lens and forget that behind all the work, there's human lives. And with that, people can change. And I think you actually sell yourself a little short, Patrick. I think your show focuses on first responders, but I think it's fantastic for everybody. If you listen, there's messages. You have high-level speakers, authors, athletes, dietitians, everything. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do more as a community, is not have first responders outside the community, but overlay, right? Because, first responders see bad stuff. They deal with stresses. But you know who else does that? Most people in life. Now, what they see that's bad is different, but your body doesn't know that your bad is any less bad than what I saw. But we still have stress responses. We still have depression. We still have suppressed feelings and emotions. And you do a great service bringing things to the light, as do we. And I think that is the benefit, is when you start tying all this together and reminding people that no matter what your profession is, we're all humans. We're all on the same team. And the more I help make you better and you help make me better, then we all thrive.
Man, especially with the fact, because I didn't know this. I didn't know that you bring people that recently got out from prison, because I think that's a very big differentiator. I don't really hear, a podcast title, hey, bringing on Joe Schmo, just got out of the pen last week. So I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are too, first of all, how do you find people to come on your show that have recently come out of prison, and maybe what's some of the feedback and lessons that your community is learning from some of these guests?
Well, I've had just a couple people that have been incarcerated that have come out, and I think the lesson is like what Jared hit on it. I mean, anybody can change. You know, anybody can change, but it starts with you. You know, I was taught growing up that, you know, I'm the problem and the solution. So the things that are going on in my life that I view as obstacles or mental blocks, okay, that's me. Those are my problems, but I'm also the solution. I can also, you know, I can shift my mindset. I can do things differently. So getting back to some of the people I've had Joe Buckner on. I've had a couple other people that were incarcerated. And the way I find them is simple: research. You know, get on web, get on the line. You know, get online. I do a lot of my research through LinkedIn. But you know, I love hearing those different perspectives because as first responders, we are programmed. At least I was from a very young age in my law enforcement career. Like, if you're not one of us, you're one of them. And then when I started to grow in my career and started maturing and started hanging around other people that weren't in law enforcement, that's when my mind kind of shifted. And I realized that, you know, most people out there are good people.
Oh, the overwhelming
majority are good people. But law enforcement first responders deal with that certain percentage, 10% or whatever. So it kind of skews your reality. So I'm totally open to have people come on the show that have been incarcerated because we can learn from them too.
Yeah.
You know, I learned from people that have been incarcerated on my show, learning, you know, okay, the big thing about a couple of them that I have had on that have been incarcerated is taking responsibility. Quit blaming other people. Yeah, you know, own it, you know, and I think that's a hang up with a lot of people.
Yeah.
That they don't own
and not just committing crimes,
but
in your own life.
Yeah,
you're not happy in your life, take responsibility for it. You're unhappy in relationships.
Yeah.
What are you contributing to this?
Yeah, own it.
Right.
Own it.
Yeah. So Patrick, I want to know, because this is interesting. So you left law enforcement at 23 years. You were a commander, which is a job many people seek to get, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not on the front line of danger. You're a little more, but you have great impact because you're running many, many different levels of the organization. Yet you chose to leave. Share with us what events were taking place in your life. Where were you at that would make you want to leave? Because that's safe and secure. It's good pay to take this leap to where you're now, you know, on your own, entrepreneurship, collaboration. What was going on to kind of make that happen?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for me was the show was growing. You know, the podcast was growing. And I'm so passionate about the show. I'm passionate about talking to people, meeting new people, being around people that are lifting me up and not pulling me down.
So you started the show while you were still in your career.
Yeah, I started when I was still in the job about 3.5 years ago, well, almost 4 now. So I was still on the job. But like Jared said, you know, I fast-tracked. I was a good worker. I was a good cop. I fast-tracked up to the ranks. And then when I got promoted, did it for a while, and I thought, this is awesome. But then there was something deep inside of me that said, okay, this is not my purpose. This is not what I want to do long term. And you're right, it's safe, it's secure, good paying job. But I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't very fulfilled. And people were listening and saying, what the hell, you're a commander. But look, I'm not a title person. I don't think you are, you know, just because I was a commander doesn't mean that's all I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not to mention that, you know, law enforcement, I tell people this a lot, is a very toxic environment. It is extremely toxic, and that's not a dig on law enforcement if you're listening out there. I love the brave men and women who protect us every day.
Right. This is the truth.
But it is a toxic environment. So you go out there, you do your job, you do it well, and you bring it back. A lot of people hold it in. You bring it into the department. Cops sit around, talk about this toxic stuff, most of them, not all of them. And then you bring it home. So I was getting to a point where I was kind of bringing it home, or I was bringing it home.
Yep.
And I just said, okay, I'm on a path right now. I can go this route or that route. Which way do I want to go? So I chose to leave on top, because I wanted to pursue other things. So, you know, I would have never met you probably, or Carrie, or all these other wonderful people. And this is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
Again.
So when you were feeling unfulfilled, what exactly does that mean to you? What were you feeling was missing?
Just a bigger purpose. You know, I felt I could do more good with the show and reach the masses, reach more people. And I had a taste of it. You know, that's what really pumped me up. You know, it was, and I hate to say it, well, I don't hate to say it, I wasn't jazzed anymore about going to work. I was at the top of my game, man. I was, and you wouldn't know it if to look at me. I had a smile, and I was, but I just wasn't fulfilled. Something inside.
Patrick, was there a moment or event that was the turning point for you to where you're like, I got to make a change?
I don't think there was a moment per se, but I think it was just a culmination of things. Mm-hmm. And I knew that if I didn't make a change now, I probably wouldn't.
Did people around you notice you were unfulfilled? Family members, kids?
My wife did.
Yeah.
My wife did. She called me on it.
What'd she say?
She said, "Look, you got to do what makes you happy. You got to do what makes you fulfilled." And we have a great life, and you're losing that income, but we planned for it and made preparations. So I took the leap and never looked back.
That's so awesome, because I remember when I was getting ready to make this change, and I told Andrew, I was like, I literally can't keep going there.
Yeah.
Like, it's killing. Like, I really believe like this and all the other stuff I have on the outside can flourish, but I can't continue to go and spend 10 hours at a place that I feel is kind of like taking advantage of me and holding me back in places, and then come home and flip the switch and create and write books and do the things that I think I'm really supposed to be doing. And I just remember her face, and she's like, "Oh boy, here we go again."
And it's a great feeling, and it's just to piggyback a little bit on what you said, Jared. It's amazing to me, and I don't know if you had this experience. How many people came up to me and said, "Dude, you're going to be back."
Yeah.
And you're not gonna make it, and this is the only thing you know how to do.
Wow.
And I talk about this a lot on my show, and those are friends. But for those of you who are listening out there that want to take a chance, risk, whatever, you got to go with what's in your heart and what you're passionate about. You can't listen to the people, the naysayers that are trying to keep you down.
Yeah, no, we shared that story where people told me they were betting on me. They were betting that I'd be back within a year, and I was like, "That's fool's money, because I'm not coming back."
Yeah. And it's such a wonderful career, Jared. But we're all living longer. Most of us, we all. You got to go after your dreams. You got to live your purpose, and this is my purpose.
So at what point did the podcast become an opportunity for you? At what point did you think, like, this is something that I can actually do? Were you listening to other people?
Oh, yeah. I listen to a ton of podcasts. You mentioned Jocko earlier, Lewis Howes, Tim Ferriss. I listen to all kinds of podcasts. And it wasn't really one point. It was just a culmination of things. I was getting the traction we mentioned earlier about a lot of podcasts fail within the first 10 episodes. They don't, and I
fail not because they're bad.
No, because
they quit showing up.
They quit showing up. And I knew that in order for the show to grow, I had to go all in. I had to go all in, and I had to invest the time. And not that I wasn't investing the time before, but it wasn't as consistent as it is now. And I knew I had to go all in.
Tell me more about how you decided to do the first episode. Like what happened to where you're like, all right, I got to start this podcast. Like, who was your first guest? Like, how did you get started?
It was, again, I listened to a lot of shows, did research, and it was funny. I just got to a point where I was like, I can do this, man. There's nothing different than this person I'm listening to. We both get our pants on the same way. I can do it. But that was a great question. So I didn't have a lot of guests at first. I was just kind of doing it by myself, recording myself and sending out positive messages and stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot of guests. It was one of those fears I had, self-confidence thing, self-doubt thing, where I was like, I get up the courage to ask somebody to come on this brand new show.
Yeah.
And I remember the first guest I got, I was like, holy crap, man, Who was it? It was amazing. You were going to ask me that. I'm 350 episodes deep. I can't remember. And I know it's bad.
You don't remember the first time?
I don't. It's bad. I could probably pull it up, and I feel horrible. I don't. But I remember it was great. It was just an amazing feeling. And so I just kept building on that. I got more self-confidence. And because that's the biggest thing, I was fearful. I think a lot of people struggle with fear. Me, I'm scared. Yeah, all the time. But that's what drives me. I don't let it hold me back anymore.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people out there. Last week was Fort Collins Startup Week. There was lots of business presentations, and I went to a podcast one, which is a very popular presentation. Lots of people in there that want to start a podcast. I have a lot of people reach out. Hey, how'd you start your podcast? How would you describe your first few episodes? Because like we said, most people stop. So especially with you being alone, you know, you're the only one talking. Because when Jared and I started, at least we had each other.
Yeah, it's easier.
Right?
It's easier.
So I can imagine the difficulty of being like, yeah, I got to show up. It's just me. I'm talking. What were really the drivers? Did you have people that were like, hey, Patrick, like, you know, you should do a podcast. This is great. Did you have any support, or were you just, you know, Wolverine that driven?
No,
like,
I was just focused. I mean, I didn't have a lot of support. As a matter of fact, you know, for a while, I didn't tell people I had a podcast.
Oh, dude, that's so common.
You know why? Because I didn't want people to judge me.
100%.
I didn't want people to say, "Oh shit,
that's awful.
You suck."
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't tell people initially that I had a show, and then I was just focused, man, like a laser beam. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, and work on sound and all this other stuff. And then I just kept going and going. And then once I started getting those guests line up, and then it was just, it was easier and easier. And I still, I'm working on the show, trying to make it better. It's a constant process.
I think that is so huge for our listeners out there, because I've been guilty of it. I'm guessing you have too. Sometimes we will limit our success for fear of what other people are going to think about us, right? Like, not sharing the fact you're actually recording and honing your craft and you believe in it. I remember, I think I shared this before, the first time I got the edits for my book back from the editor. Yeah. I didn't open the email for a week.
Yeah.
Simply because I was afraid she was going to tell me all kinds of stuff. And how many of us are holding back from what we really want in life? How many of us are holding back from what we want in our relationships and where our life goes because I'm simply worried about what you guys are going to say and think?
Yeah.
And the fact is, you're going to say or think whatever you say or think anyhow. Mm-hmm. But at least if I go forward, I'm out there. I'm in the game. Now I can choose to give weight to your opinion or not give weight to it. But so many of us give everybody's opinion weight, and it's not even their opinion. It's our guess of their opinion that holds us back. And now your episode, you're 350 something?
300 something.
Woo! Listeners, like 15. What's your average listener rate?
Oh, jeez.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And if you would have stayed in fear, think of how many people would have missed out on those messages.
Yeah.
Right? But people do it every day. We do that to ourselves every day. And
it's so debilitating. And I think of it as, see, we have kids. You have kids. You have kids. So Jared and I have kids.
He's basically like another one.
You say you're not a kid. But I think about a toddler. Yeah, man. I remember when my kids were just toddlers. Toddlers are fearless.
Love it. Yeah.
They don't care what other people think. They will keep trying and trying and trying until they accomplish it. Most of them. Yeah. It's not until we get conditioned and we get older and we're around people that say you can't do it, and you're going to fail, and we carry that. I know I did for many years because I was so afraid. Everything you want, like I say, is on the other side.
Yeah.
And first of all, you got to surround yourself with the right people. That's why I love this guy.
Thanks.
Because he lifts me up. And I think that's a big part of it is you have to surround yourself with the people. Not that people live in a bubble and everything's sunshine and roses all the time. People have bad days. But the overwhelming majority of people I hang out with are positive people. Yeah. With positive messages and that are filling me up.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I still struggle with that sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. We all do.
And we all do. And then I think about, okay, what did Jared say on his show? What does Carrie tell me? What about some other influencers that I hang out with or talk to all the time? Yeah. What are they telling me? And that pumps me up. That's so important.
Yeah, definitely, Patrick. So I want to take a different route, being on the subject of toddlers, because the fact that you made this leap and made this jump, you were valuing your opinion the most. I'm not hearing, hey, my buddy or my wife or anyone was pushing me, and that's something very unique in today's world. Usually it takes someone, someone gave you the idea of a podcast, you came to me and it culminates and you need extra energies, but it sounds that you really believed in what you could bring to the world and you just executed, which is amazing. So good on you. So I'm curious, bringing it back to the toddlers, tell us a little bit about young Patrick, your journey to becoming a cop. What made you want to become a cop? And then maybe in your career, stories, things, challenges that made you start having those thoughts of, I have stories, I can give something to the world. I'm really curious to know a little bit about the young Patrick story.
Well, there's a lot there. So I grew up, I was a military brat. Okay. So my dad was in the military. He was a JAG officer, so he was a lawyer. in the Army. We were stationed overseas for about my first 10 years, 9 years of life, and then we were stateside. My dad got stationed in Colorado. So I was a military brat for a while. Grew up at middle-class home, great mom, great dad. As I grew up, I had uncles that were police officers, so I was surrounded a lot by first responders. My mom was a nurse, so she gave back too. So there was a point where I graduated high school. I didn't want to go to school right away because I didn't think college was for me. So I did some odd jobs and then joined the military at 21. Was jumping out of perfectly good airplanes down at Fort Bragg with 82nd for a while. Did that for about 4 years. During that time, let me back up. I got married before I went in. So I never forget my wife and I got married. My ex-wife and I got married, and I joined the military all in 1 week.
Oh, wow. So 21, got married, joined the military. and able to drink. That's a big deal.
And a lot of that was due to I grew up in a military family.
Yeah.
My dad was military, so a big influence on me. So did the Army thing for 4 years, got out. When I was in, I knew I wanted to continue to serve, not in the military capacity, but I wanted to get into law enforcement. Came back to Colorado with my wife, or ex-wife, and baby in tow, my daughter, who's now 25, and got into a police academy in Denver. And the rest is history. Applied, got the first job in law enforcement I applied to down in southeastern Colorado, so I was down there for about 10 years. And then came up to the Front Range and retired with Louisville PD. Now, during that period, I was married for 20 years before, and I talk about this in my book. Ended in divorce. My ex-wife and I have a great relationship now, but that goes back into the nature of law enforcement, the toxicity. My ex-wife was in parole, so she saw the end of it. I saw the beginning of it. She saw people getting out of prison. So we saw a lot of the same stuff, or some of the same stuff. Yeah. And it was kind of a toxic kind of complaining all the time, the world sucks and all this other stuff. So, and it ended in divorce, which was horrible. I don't think people get married with divorce and in mind.
Yeah. Right.
So that changed me. That was a big point in my life where I said, that was a catalyst for me where I said, I got to quit blaming people for everything. Yeah. I got to quit blaming, because I blame my ex-wife where you don't understand and all this other stuff. And so that was a pivotal point in my life where it kind of changed things for me. Met my new wife, Jennifer. Jared's met her. Wonderful woman. Had nothing to do with law enforcement, has nothing to do with criminal justice. That wasn't by design, that's just how it is. And she really kind of got me on the path of, look, you have the control, you have the power, you need to shift your mindset. And that was pivotal for me. There was a lot. You asked me, what was the other stuff? Really how you got to where you are now from there. Yeah, so, have a wonderful, I've been with my current wife for about 10 years now, and she's just been a wonderful woman. And so she was a big influence, or still is a big influence on me and my mindset and cultivating that. And so, like I said, about 3.5 years ago, I was driving around listening to a show, and I said, hey, man, I can do that. I can do that. And just laser focused and jumped into it, both feet. It's been peaks and valleys, but overwhelmingly it's been a success, and I've enjoyed it. And again, great guests and great content, and I'm loving it, man. Loving life.
Yeah.
Good. Too much. Is that too much?
No, definitely. We're digging deeper here. So one of the biggest lessons that I'm hearing is the lesson of true ownership.
Yeah, exactly.
And responsibility. And I think that's one of the most important ones. There's an awesome Chinese proverb. I forgot how it goes, but it was when I was in college when I feel that it was a really good lesson for me. The Chinese proverb was that if your neighbor, if lightning strikes a tree in your yard and it hits your neighbor's house, it's your fault, your responsibility, because that's your tree, right? Essentially taking ownership for everything, right? So would you say the divorce was a big piece of that lesson? Were there specific lessons to where you're like, hey, I'm blaming a lot of what's going on in my life on others. I need to take ownership there. Tell us some more about that.
Yeah, like I said, Jocko talks about this extreme ownership, and what I've learned over the years is, look, nothing happens to you; it happens because of you. And Yeah, you could argue, well, somebody hit me or an accident or something. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about most things that happen. So the divorce, I take ownership for that. And it was me. I could have had a better mindset. I blame my ex-wife for that. But I don't anymore because I look back at the person I was and I was like, I had a great career, you know, but I was consumed with the job and everything else failed. You know, I wasn't spending time with my kids, you know, who are older now.
Yeah.
I lost that time because I was signing up for every bit of extra duty that, you know, raising a family. We needed the money. But again, I'm losing that time, losing that, you know, relationship with my ex-wife.
Yeah,
and those are the things that matter in life. It's not, you gotta pay the bills. I totally get it. For those people, oh, you know, I got bills. I get that. But at the expense of what?
Yeah.
Right.
So change your life. You know, if you got to go to work because you have all this debt, then do stuff to mitigate that. You don't need that new car. You don't need that new watch. You don't need that whatever. You have the power. So it's a matter of taking ownership of all that. And that's what I did.
And how much would you say not having healthy outlets in your career, right? Maybe not processing things, keeping things bottled up, affected the relationships at home and stuff?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. I know for me, I can't speak for.
I think it is for most law enforcement.
For other people, but it was huge. You know, and it goes back to that mindset, Jared. It's like, well, how would you understand what I'm going through because I'm a cop and you're not? You don't see what I see.
Right.
I mean, I had that mentality. And you're right, everybody. This affects everybody. Everybody out there, whether you're a cop or not, deals with stuff. But first responders are a little unique because we live in an isolated kind of community, you know. And I had that mindset where everybody's out there as a criminal. It wasn't until I met my wife, Jennifer, who said, look, you know, most people out there are good people. And I remember when we first started dating, she was like, come on, man, let's go out and meet some of my friends. I was like, I'm not going out and meet some of your damn friends. Why would I?
Yeah.
And it took a while, and she wore me down until I started going out, and I started meeting people, and I started saying, oh, my God, this is amazing. This is wonderful. This person out there doesn't want to kill me. He's not a criminal. I mean, he's actually a good person. Yeah. Those were all such pivotal points in my life, and that's what – and to go back to your question, why did I get out of law enforcement? That was a big reason.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to stay in that environment. And again, for those of you listening, this is not a dig. I'm not trying to – but those of you in law enforcement know exactly what I mean. Mm-hmm. And you can have a wonderful law enforcement career, but I talk to a lot of cops, and a lot of them are unhappy because they're in that mindset.
I think part of it, too, is law enforcement is fire, military.
Yeah.
You have a uniform, you have instant status, right? Like in the civilian job world, you know, right? I show up, and we just talked about this maybe last episode or one before, but if I'm a businessman and I meet you and you're a businessman, we usually introduce ourselves and we're like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, I own B nails, blah, blah, I'm the number one this, that. And I'm like, oh, cool, man, I have this and that, right? We don't have instant identification.
Right.
But police, fire, military, you show up in a uniform.
I'm in charge.
You have a name tag. You have a badge. Like immediately, people recognize you're different. Right? I can see everything about you, and it's easy for that to overtake the other part of your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not B nails 24/7, 365. You work it, but then you get to kind of disconnect and go home and be these because you allow it. And I kind of disagree with you a little bit, Patrick, in that law enforcement lives in an isolated world. We put ourselves in an isolated world.
Well, I agree.
You know what I
mean? That's what I mean with the mindset.
Absolutely. We train it.
Yeah.
We coach it. You only hang out with cops. You barbecue, right? And at first, when you first become a policeman, maybe that first year, you still have some of your buddies from college, some of your buddies from your old job. But as you slowly get indoctrinated in this us versus them, isolate, next thing you know, 20 years down the road, you're miserable.
Oh, yeah.
You have no friends outside of work. You have no activities, no hobbies, right? That's a miserable life. And that's one of the reasons, like, I knew I was doing 20 years and leaving because I had seen a lot of older officers before me leave and die quick deaths and not have a retirement they actually enjoyed. Like, they just left broken people. And I was like, I'm not doing that to myself. Like, I'm going to serve. I'm going to be the best I can be. But you're getting 20 years, and I'm going to set myself up to go do some other things that I find are more enjoyable in life.
Yeah.
And I think not just our first responders, but many people in life put themselves in this niche. They get a good job, they get good pay, they get a house with a fence, and then somehow along the way, that becomes all they're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But deep inside, they knew there was this thing they wanted to do or this thing they should be doing. But it's scary.
Yeah.
It's fearful. It's not as comfortable.
And
we settle into this life.
Especially when you have that mindset, which you actually made me aware of, Jared. You gave me a huge realization. One of our earliest episodes, Jared had said, well, think about it, Ali. As a police officer, our job is to look for the bad in everyone. We're looking for whoever's doing crime. So that type of mentality, if it sticks with you in the real world and you think everyone's out to get you, everyone has criminal, I can only imagine how much scarier it is for somebody in law enforcement to make that entrepreneurial jump than it is for somebody in the regular corporate world, because your job literally is to look for the bad.
Yeah,
and I agree. I mean, and that's the mindset. You're right, Jerry. We put ourselves.
No, we do. Nobody else puts you there.
Nobody else puts ourselves in there, and that's part of that conditioning. That first responders go through. But I'm a firm believer, and I know, Jared, you believe this, and Ali, you probably do too. I mean, you are who you surround yourself with. Yeah. It's like you're growing up. You got kids, or don't hang out with those kids. Well, there's a reason why, because you're going to be like those kids.
Yeah.
And so I knew. Like I could keep going, like Jared said, I could keep going and be miserable probably, because that's my choice.
Yeah.
But that's the environment. Or I can take a leap and I can do what most don't and take a chance. And I chose that.
Yeah.
And I'm much happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think so much of it is who you are surrounding yourself with, your 5 or whoever, 4 or 10, whatever. Who's your tribe? Who's your group? Because those are going to really be pivotal in your life, and those are going to help you. And I'd rather fail going forward than fail standing still.
Yeah.
Because at least you're gaining ground going forward.
Or even if you don't gain ground, you learn a lesson.
Yeah, you learn a lesson.
And now you reapply it and you go, and now you get the ground back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I think is a great segue, Patrick, into one of the things I'm excited to watch you adventure out on. You've recently launched your Evolve coaching program. Yeah. And specifically for our first responder audience, you're helping them set themselves up to transition.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a scary thing for people, military, law enforcement, fire, that 20 years in, but I want to do something else, so how do I do it? So give us a little insight on what could people expect for these coaching sessions with you, and why should they hire you as a coach?
Well, Evolve is an acronym.
Yep.
And Evolve is E. First is elevate your thinking. We've been talking about mindset. So I talk about that with my clients. I was like, okay, you need to get out of that mindset that is holding you back. So that's E, and I'll give you the quick version. E is elevate. So elevate your mindset. V is visualization. I think so much that we want in life is you have to visualize it. Everything we see in this room, cars, you, or the table, everything started with a vision. So if you want that better life, if you want to write that book, if you want to start that security business on the side, you got to visualize it. And there's science behind this. If you don't believe me, there is. Others. We talked about it. I teach people, okay, who is your tribe? Write down the top 10 people you're associating with. Okay, who is toxic? Because there's toxic people out there. We talk about it. Those people aren't serving you. And most people that are telling you can't do it are people who have tried and failed, and they're putting those insecurities onto you. So that's O. L. I think one of the most important is love your life. First responders are so good at taking care of other people and loving other people and serving, but they don't have a good grasp of what's going on in their own life. Or that maybe they don't love themselves. Look, if you want to take care of everybody, if you want to have a loving relationship with your spouse, you got to love yourself first. And some people say, well, it's narcissistic. BS, it's not narcissist. Look, you got to be passionate about loving yourself. There's a big difference between being a narcissist and loving and caring about yourself.
For sure.
So that's L. V is victorious. You celebrate those small victories every day that you're doing. Especially first responders, man. You are out there busting your ass, serving the community. Celebrate those small victories. The problem with law enforcement and most jobs is nobody commends you or says you're doing a good job. It's when you do something bad and then people are saying, oh, you screwed up. And E, every day, show up, be your best. So that's the premise behind my coaching. And that's what I talk about. And I give people tools and tips and, homework that they can do to become better, and it's rocking along, man. Having a good time.
Yeah, that was when I saw you launch. I was like, that's a great segue, kind of from the podcast, which is very open, to okay, you need more of this. Like, let me share with you my story of how I've done this.
Yeah, and I just, my message is simple. I help first responders, people in the CJ field, become stronger, more resilient. I kind of like some of the same stuff we're talking about with Triad, man. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And people need to hear about this. But you're right, Jared. It's not just for law enforcement, not just for criminal justice. Whatever you're doing out there, this is applicable to you.
Yeah. No, I love that. Evolve. That sounds like that'd be some fun workshops and homework. I really, really love the fact that you talk about loving yourself in there. I feel like that's a component that is missing from a lot of personal development and coaching material and content that is out there. But I think it's so important because we can only love others to the capacity that we love ourselves.
Right, we talked about
we don't talk a lot about that, man. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a lot of people, and I was one of those people where I for a long time I didn't, not that I was suicidal or anything, but I wasn't happy. Yeah, I wasn't fulfilled.
100% agree.
I was like, oh my God, I don't like what I'm becoming. And it all within my control.
Yep.
But
you're
I didn't love myself.
By your environment.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
It is in your control, but also if I can only control so much.
Yeah.
If I go to work every day and I'm around 5 people that see the worst in everything, that bitch, complain, moan, hate everything, like there's only so much of a force field I can put up to deflect that. A little bit still gets through.
But you can control whether or not you go to work.
You can leave. And ultimately, when I left, people were like, well, what are you going to, like, you got all this stuff, like, what's your goal with that? And I told Andrea when I left, I was like, hey, here's kind of what we're doing now. I don't know that in 5 years any of these are providing for our life. Like I feel like by taking that leap, you're going to be open and attract other things. I wouldn't have met you. We wouldn't be doing this if I was still there. Because I wasn't searching for a thing. I was wanting to be happy.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
I was looking to have happiness, and that was what was missing. And I think that's a huge, but that comes back to what we talked about. It's okay to love yourself. Yeah. It's okay to put yourself first, because I can't be the best husband to Andrea. I can't be the best dad to my kids. I can't be the best podcast partner, the best gym partner, the best leadership partner if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do for me.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately where a lot of people, they think, I got to give, and then they're dying, they're exhausted, they're unhealthy, they have disease, they have terrible habits to cope with the things they're not dealing with because they haven't stopped to love themselves.
Right. Can we take a minute to talk about that for a second for our listeners? How do you start loving yourself? Let's say you're in a place to where you look in the mirror, you're not really happy, you're not in love with who you are. What do you think, Patrick, is a way that you start loving yourself?
Well, for me, it was, okay, what am I? I think there's so many different components to this. Jared mentioned it. It's fitness is a big thing too. Look, if you're taking care of your body, it's going to release those endorphins. You're in better shape. You're eating correctly. It's going to improve your mood. It's going to improve your state of mind, your clarity, all that stuff. So that's a component. Another thing is, okay, what am I reading? Look, the average person out there doesn't even read a book, half a book a year.
Wow.
Read, consume books, consume things that are motivational, there's so many good things like Jocko and Lewis Howes and all these other books out there. Grab a book that's going to lift you up. So that's a part of it. Again, who you're surrounding yourself with is a big part of it. So, I took aspects of all that, all those, and I just started having that mind shift. And I was like, well, look, it's okay to love yourself. Again, it goes back into what we were talking about with first responders. They're so good at taking care of other people. Mm-hmm. But they're so bad, most of them, at taking care of themselves. But you can mitigate that. And again, it's a mind shift, man. It's where do you want to be? Like Jared said, he told, his wife, he said, okay, this is, do I want to keep on this path? Or do I want to go down this road, shift my mindset? It's a choice, people. You have the choice. Some things you don't have control over. A lot of things you do. Yeah. It's all up here, man. It's all in your mind. Mm-hmm. You can't, but getting back to love, it is so important that you love yourself. It is so important because, like you said, how can you love others? How can you serve, in the capacity you want to serve if you don't love yourself?
And I will share with our community and with you, Patrick, that love is something I've learned a great deal from this man. he literally wakes up every day loving what the universe has given him.
Yeah.
Gratitude. And honestly, how many times do you look and be like, man, I love you, right? We don't tell men we love them. Why are we so, why is that not good? It's an emotion we're supposed to have. It's one of the best feel-good emotions you have.
Oh my God,
Yet we hide it all the time because we have this idea that I'm weak if I say, man, I love you. I love what you bring to this. I love what you're giving to my life. But I'll tell you what, when I say, Patrick, I love what you bring to my life. I love getting to teach with you. I love sharing these stories. You feel love. You feel good. And now when you give yourself permission to love others, you're now open to receiving love.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I know some people are like, oh, fuck, Jared's off in the woods. I'm telling you, it's true. Why do people come to me and say, dude, since you left law enforcement, you just seem lighter? I think you even mentioned it.
Yeah.
You just seem lighter. Well, why is it lighter? Well, I'm just around people that it's okay to be like, dude, I love you, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for doing what you're doing for my life.
Oh, yeah.
Which now opens me up to see other things. Instead of going through the day looking for who's doing bad, I'm looking for like, man, who can I love?
Yeah.
Who brings love into my life?
Yeah, and it's starting that day, man, like you said.
Yes.
I start every day in gratitude. Before my feet even hit the floor, I'm saying, okay, I'm grateful. I'm grateful, first of all, that I'm alive. I'm grateful for my loving wife. I'm grateful for the house. It's not about the things. No. It's the relationships in my life. Those are more important. But I'm grateful. And you're right. I mean, it's just that mind shift, man. I mean, because there's so many people out there that, again, I still have friends that just complain about everything, and they complain about, well, I didn't get promoted, didn't do this and this. It's like, dude, what are you going to do? Again, taking responsibility. What are you going to do? Really quick, I had a buddy that called me up a couple of weeks ago. Before I retired, he didn't get promoted. I was sitting on the promotional board, and he didn't get promoted. So he called me, and he's been gone for like a year. And so he called me up and said, hey, man, I heard you retired. I was like, yeah. He's like, I got to ask you a question. Why didn't I get promoted? So he's been holding on to this shit for a year.
Wow.
And it's like everything we've been talking about, take ownership. All right? Take ownership of your life. Love your life. And everything's going to be fine, man. Yeah, you're going to have bad days, but so much is mindset and loving yourself and giving back.
I love it.
I mean, it's so important.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, and it's just a blessing, and I'm thankful that I get to do this with you guys and with all the On Purpose community and just share that there's more in life.
Yeah.
You don't have to be scared to go after it, and you don't owe anybody an explanation for why you want more in life.
I'm telling you, man, you don't quit living in fear, you know.
Yep.
Quit living the life you think people want you to live.
Okay.
And
as we wrap up, Patrick, where can people go to find more about you, your activities, and to keep up with everything that is Patrick?
Simple. CJEvolution.com is my website. All my socials linked up to that. And reach out to me. All my coaching, speaking, podcasts are all at that site, CJEvolution.com.
Nice. We appreciate you being here, my friend.
Anytime,
I know,
brother.
The audience will get a lot out of this conversation. And Evolve, that's a good acronym.
Love it.
Yeah. Thanks,
on
brother.
the love train after this one.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for being here.
You're welcome, brother.
Take care, guys. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.